more believable.
It's beautiful. And I mean, you look at the people who worked on this. They had Jeff Amata, the guy who choreographed the fights in Mortal Kombat and They Live, that epic street fight. Then you have Jeff Ward, who has worked on Hellboy, Inside Man, Black Klansman, The Five Bloods, Malcolm X, a stunt coordinator. I mean, you had some of the best martial artists. Like, they brought in some excellent martial artists from Hong Kong. They really, you watch this again, and it's, you know, that you put the henchmen in the outfit so you can reuse them. So I get it. It's fine. Saved on budget. It wasn't the biggest budgeted film. But I loved watching these fights and the kicks. And when, you know, they even hide that girl that starts kicking him that we meet earlier at Duncan Frost's loft. And then she starts kicking him.
Video games when he's walking around hearing from Pearl about La Magra and how it works. Mm-hmm. She's sitting there watching video games and looking up. And that was another one of those things, because in vampire communities, children were forbidden. They couldn't be vampires because then they would live forever as little vampires.
And he just takes her in there, and then she just starts kicking him. It's just excellent. Yeah, that move he does, the when he throws his blade and then he catches it. Yeah. When he just putting the sword down, doing the stances. I mean, it's just so cool. It's such a cool movie. And one thing I really don't like is I enjoy Blade 2. We did an episode on it. I bought the Blu-ray, listened to all 47 commentaries because Guillermo del Toro loads his stuff up, which is amazing. I love exploring his films. Yeah. I love Blade 2, but I think it became more about sort of the CGI fights. And then, which is fine. They had superhero fights before superhero fights were super huge. I mean, Spider-Man, stuff like that. As much as, I don't know, the Wolfpack is cool. Nisa's cool. What I don't like about Blade 2 is she fights Blade to a standstill in the beginning of the film, and at the end she's completely helpless.
Helpless, can't fight.
I hated that. And then Blade 3, my friend Norbert, who joins the show a lot, you know, a great friend, he's on a lot of MFF episodes, we were talking about it, and a lot of the negativity about Blade 3 has come from Patton Oswalt's comments about Wesley Snipes on set. And Wesley Snipes recently was like, that's all BS. I was a producer. It was a huge set. I was always in the Blade character. I was always, like, there's nothing new about that. Like, this is not an issue at all. He's like, why does people even just believe Patton Oswalt? Like, none of this is true. He's like, but imagine being Wesley Snipes, right?
Where did Patton Oswalt, I haven't read these comments, so I'm going in blind. So you can educate me, but I know that where did Patton Oswalt hear these comments? Because from what I heard, Jessica Biel and Ryan Reynolds were kind of saying the same thing.
Now, here's the thing. You're Wesley Snipes. Yeah. You have taken Blade and Blade 2 to new heights. You have this world on your back, and you are a producer, and this world has made a lot of money, and by 2004 on Blade Trinity, this was supposed to be the swan song to your trilogy. But instead, you're
finally introducing Dracula.
Yeah, exactly. But instead, David Goyer steps up to direct. He's a great writer, but his movies Zigzag, Invisible, and Unborn, they're all 10%, 20% movies. Like, they're not good. So you have a relatively inexperienced director, and you're bringing in Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel and Parker Posey, who's the best part of that movie, and Dracula.
Oh, come on.
Oh, she earns her paycheck. She's amazing.
Triple H brought that movie.
Oh yeah, Triple H. You get the WWE crowd, and this is you. This is your film, and nothing about Blade Trinity even matches anything from Blade 1 or 2. I remember I went to the big cinema in downtown Baywalk in St. Pete. I went to go watch it, and I was really disappointed because I wanted Blade. And it's not a Blade movie. So I think if you're Wesley Snipes, you're always in character. You're not being used much. Like, Ryan Reynolds said that, like, he was in character. And they just seemed like they were, so, okay, Blade was never jokey. And remember in the second one, the humor came from him shining the red light at, Ron Perlman's balls during that scene, or saying, ooh, I'm so scared. Like, just real.
Yeah, ooh, come get me.
Yeah, but then you get a motor mouth. So Wesley Snipes is in character. How are you going to play off this motor mouth? You're not. He was never jokey. So all these comments that they have, I was not there. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're wrong. But you're in character. You're Blade. You've been this way for 2 pictures, and that they've been successful because of you. Now you get these jokey 20-something-year-olds who listen to music while shooting bow and arrows and all this stuff. And I think the director, it was big. He didn't have much money. Like, not money. He didn't have much experience. So I could see Snipes being yeah. And they said that Snipes communicated by post-it note to the director. Yeah. Well, he's in character. He needed to talk to this director who, days went long. So I don't know.
Two things.
He could have been badly behaved, sure. But I don't like how people just were so quick to dogpile on him because of something Patton Oswalt and a few other people said. I think they did a disservice to the character of Blade and Blade Trinity.
You're right. And let's talk about the fact that Patton Oswalt's level of involvement in the movie and Wesley Snipes' level of involvement in the movie. There's shades of gray there. But a lot of people don't know. Wesley Snipes did his press tour in character. He stayed dressed up as Blade and did his interviews like that. So your comments that he stayed in character the whole time, absolutely. It's his baby. He was trying to truly push that character to the forefront and make it something. I mean, even when they were talking about recasting and doing Mahershala Ali in the new Blade, there were still talks about bringing Wesley Snipes back.
Mm-hmm. I just think put yourself in Wesley Snipes' shoes. We weren't there, and so it's really hard to do that. But I also think just straight up blame Wesley Snipes when you had your baby taken away from you, and they just wanted to. It was a what's the word? It was a cynical cash grab. You have a movie with Dracula, Jack, and he's just some bald dude. Like, it's not this interesting.
Muscular guy who did not, to me, have the presence of a Dracula.
Didn't even have anywhere near the presence of Stephen Dorff or the other actor.
But that's the point that you made a lot earlier when we were talking about the Blade 1 and why do we think it was so successful, because it was so grounded and it's Blade and Deacon Frost. That's it, right? I mean, you have other factors, but the two things are Blade in his camp, Deacon in his camp, and they're at opposite ends and they're moving towards an ultimate conclusion. Now, when you go to Blade 2, there's Blade, the Blood Pack representing vampires, and I forget the name of what they ended up calling them.
The other guy, the Reapers, right?
The
Reapers, yeah.
Thank you. Yes, and the main Reaper's name was
Kovac
or Womack.
Yeah, one of those. Bonnie Lee Womack. Is that what you're thinking?
That seemed a little clunky to me, but still it works because you still have the same vibe. At the end of the day, it's Blade against the main Reaper, and you get the point of it. Mm-hmm. But then you have Blade 3. You have the vampires. You have Blade. Now you introduce Abigail Whistler and Hannibal King, who Hannibal King is an extraordinarily big character for comic book fans. So he's a big character in Blade lore. So for him to be like, okay, and not just that, but now you have Wesley Snipes, oh my gosh, I said her name, Jessica Biel, Ryan Reynolds. Then you have Parker Posey and Triple H and all these big characters that want their own screen time, and you lose the essence of why this movie was so good in the first place. It's because you focused on Blade and his mission. And too many cooks, man. Throwing too many things into the plot, and it fell apart to me.
If you think about the Blood Pack, even Scud, Norman Reedus from 2, but you had Matt Schultz as Chupa, or Ron Perlman as Reinhardt, Donnie Yen Snowman. You just had Tony Curran as Priest. Those guys, they just were very in the Blade world as far as the character of Blade. The tone was the same. So I just get ignored. I get annoyed when people just start making fun of Snipes for Blade 3 because it's very short-sighted to me. And obviously, I'm going to say it again for the 40th time. We weren't there. But it's just, I don't know. It doesn't gel. And I know we're supposed to be talking about Blade, but
it's a big thing of why we wanted this movie to be so good. Mm-hmm. We wanted Blade to be good. So, it's I don't know. It's easy to tear it apart when you're Patton Oswalt and you're somebody who was just there for a minute role. And then it doesn't go well. And, why didn't it go well, Patton? Well, let me tell you.
You know what it is, too? Whenever I watch Blade, I dislike Blade Trinity much more. So my dislike of Blade Trinity dissipates the further I've been from watching Blade.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? But when I watch Blade, it just boils back up again, and I'm like, oh, I'm annoyed. So
I agree.
It's kind of a shame because let's say even the first two films, they were really excellent, and they told good stories. I do think Blade 2 gets a little carried away with the family, and then the ultimate vampire, then the son, then the daughter, and then the wolf pack. But I mean, there's still some legit fights. I mean, there's a flying CGI elbow drop on Blade.
Yes, there is.
There's a suplex. I mean, what I like too is that one brought in superhero fights. And Donnie Yen choreographed one of the fights, and I dig that about it. I like the sewer scene a lot, actually. I thought that was really cool.
I thought that was one of the best shot scenes in the whole series.
Yeah,
that sequence of events, from them being in the sewer to them trying to get out, is one of the best action sequences to me, period. I just love it. As far as comic book movies go, yeah, man, the intensity that's built from them being these elite. It's like we said with Blade 1, the elite. The hunters becoming the hunted.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Wow. So in the beginning, the vampires are hunted and they're afraid of Blade. But then you have the vampire hunters and Blade being afraid of the Reapers. And Nomak was his name.
I found it and I was going to tell you.
We're Kovac, Djokovic.
Nomak.
Novak, Djokovic. Yeah. My favorite superhero films, right, are Unbreakable, where you have Mr. Glass trying to find someone who's unbreakable, and this person learning their powers. And in Unbreakable, there's this scene where there's this man in an orange jumpsuit, and he's just spitting beer on this dead woman tied to a radiator. It's one of the most haunting visuals, and I've seen pretty much every horror movie that has haunting visuals. There still are some, and then I love Batman Forever, just how, I mean, you just had Danny DeVito biting noses and eating fish, weird fish. And I just love the meat and even that movie had a decent amount of characters, but they never lost the characters. And so I like these grounded, I mean, as grounded as Batman Forever, or not Batman Forever, Batman Returns is. I just like the smaller scale stuff, and that's why I love Blade. It's very meat and potatoes. There's believable world building. We're shown, not told in some instances. And it's just fun, and there's iconic visuals, and most of these adventure comic book movies I watch, I forget about, and this one's definitely not one of them. It's right up there with Scythe 7, Psych.
Now, when you list all those movies that are your favorites, the one thing that stands out to me, when you just start naming them, like when you say Unbreakable, Blade, what were the other ones that you mentioned?
Batman Returns with Michelle Pfeiffer and Catwoman and all that.
Right. So of those three, all three of those movies have great heroes. Great people that we follow, but even more so, it's the villains. It's the iconic villains that tie you in to. That's why this is such a good movie. That's honestly why Dark Knight is my favorite movie, because I loved when Heath Ledger was on screen. It's one of those times where you're like, oh man, is my guy gonna lose?
Yeah.
It puts you in that sense. It gets you emotionally invested, and that's one of those things when we look back and analyze, you could identify with Deacon Frost to an extent.
Yeah. Just annoyed, and he's just using, and everyone tells him he can't do things.
Yeah.
He's happily evil. He never kills Donald Logue's character, which makes me happy, because when henchmen fail, henchmen die.
Yes.
And I dug that. And also I thought it was really interesting. There's a scene where Blade does a superhero landing. Let's see, Mercury jumps in front of Deacon, who's now the blood god. It's a weird scene, but it just the people seem to love working for Deacon.
They love it, and that's the thing too, because my wife watched it with me, and she did not remember this movie at all. And as soon as he comes back and Deacon's telling him, I want him alive, and he's like, dude, you have no idea. We've been trying to get this guy forever.
Yes.
All my family was like, this guy's dead. Yeah. I remember the movie. I was like, no, he's not. But you're right. They love him. It's like, I need you, man. Let all these other guys go. I need you.
You never see that coming. And he's sort of the voice of the audience a little bit, and then he just gets wiped out. And it's just, for me, when I think about Blade 2, there are some really iconic scenes for sure. And then Blade 3, I couldn't name it. I mean, just the whole, I don't want to say it on the pod, but the insults Ryan Reynolds calls Parker Posey, who they should just have their own movie and not call it Blade. It's called Vampire Hustlers or Chucklers.
That was originally going to be a spinoff, was it? There was going to be a Hannibal King spinoff from Blade 3. Or actually it was, what were they called?
Yeah, the Night Stalkers.
Night Stalkers. There was going to be a Night Stalker spinoff with Jessica Biel and Ryan Reynolds.
Just, hey, let's finish